Thank you for coming out to the second MFA reading of the semester, our first in-person MFA reading of the semester. We have two very talented writers and one very talented poet who will be reading from their works tonight. After the readings, we have time for you to ask questions?
Yeah, we'll have a few minutes.
Okay. All right. And the first person to share her work will be Woori Kim, who I have had great pleasure in getting to know over the last few months. Woori was born and raised in Seoul, South Korea. She received her BA and MA in English Literature from Tuksum Women's University. She's a first-year prose writer at the MFA program and serves as an editor for the Notre Review. Her literary influences include Virginia Woolf, William Faulkner, Franz Kafka, and Walter Benjamin. Woori writes in the surrealist tradition, but her stories are anything but traditional. They tend to have seemingly innocent, even mundane openings. You are introduced to strangeness in the smallest unit, so that you might even miss the fact that what you're reading is strange. All of a sudden, you come to realize that you're in a territory vastly different than the one you thought you had entered. Reading Woori's fiction is like opening the door to an office storeroom, groping in the dark for the light, then once illuminated, finding yourself under the dizzying vaults of a grand cathedral. Woori's writing is more than haunting and strange. With efficiency and finesse, her stories not only append storytelling norms found in realist literature, but also raise provocative questions about race, gender, class, literacy, and children's rights. Deceptively simple, her writing blurs the lines between what is acceptable and what is taboo. Whether it's wolves howling in the distance, or the soil transmitting human memories, or threads of silk being pulled out of children's knees, I can promise you that you will be left unscathed after reading or hear a Woori Kim story. Also, on a personal and completely unrelated note, Woori makes the best Japanese curry. With that, I'd like to invite Woori to the stage to read.
Thank you, Arman. And I'm going to read a part of my short story, and this is my latest submission for the workshop. The title is Understand. It is a fresh, lovely morning. Do you know moisture has its own scent? Or maybe it just permeates everything around it. The moisture now smells like trees and earth. I look up at the sky, a perfect blue, like the cotton shirt you wore when we first met. It must be summer in your forest. Yes, you like summer. Thank you for inviting me to your forest. You wouldn't imagine how thrilled I am. Your forest is quite untamed. The ground is fully covered with thick grass. There isn't any mark on the ground I can pull a trail. I look around for a clue, expecting to tell me which direction I should go. Not a clue, like your face. Sometimes when I look at you who are lost in thought, I get lost, confused. But I love this unfamiliarity which happens between lovers. We just need more time to know each other. Something just grazed my right ankle. I look down at it and find the grasshopper sitting on a green blade of grass. Is it a locust? I don't know how to tell the difference between the two. My eyes are immediately drawn to the overgrown grass. Looking closer, it looks like a carpet embroidered with luminous green threads, slightly different shades of green. It is as if you have spread your dream under my feet. I'm gonna try softly because it is your dreams. By the time I crave for taking a break, I hear a babbling brook. I walk through thick undergrowth while following the guiding sound. The brook heaves into sight, on both sides of which two lines of weeds run parallel. I go down to it and squat down to drink the crystal clear water, so limpid that I see the bed of gravel. After quenching my thirst, I take my sneakers off and sit on the ground. Cicadas sing in the trees nearby, harmonizing with the murmur of the brook. I like this symphony. Your forest is beautiful, as expected. It's always summer in your forest. Do other seasons pass? If so, will I be able to observe seasonal changes lying here? When winter comes, will your well be covered with snow? I would stay away from the well. You might fall into it because the ground around it is slippery. Is it your suggestion or warning, or is it your order phrased as advice? How do you like my forest? You like it? You can go wherever you want to go. There are no areas you are not allowed to go to in my forest. If you're hungry, you can pick every fruit. If you feel sleepy, you can lie down on any grass at any time. If you're thirsty, you can satisfy your thirst with water. I hope you are having a great time in there. Your forest is a bit masculine and has few things to satisfy hunger. I want to stay here as long as possible, but I can't. I want to observe how the sun colors this forest when rising and setting, and capture the moment the sun relieves the moon. I want to know if I still feel okay when night falls. If I go straight past the tilted Y-shaped tree, I reach the area unexplored, according to the map I've been making. Yes, I do. When I'm about to start my journey, a drop of water falls on my head. In a short time, drops of water turn into a sudden shower of rain and splatter down on the ground. I look around for a shelter from it. Can't find one. Now it is pouring down. Can't afford to look into the map. I make a dash for the untouched area. From a distance, I see an arch, so I sprint for it. I'm standing under the arch, which is covered with rose bushes, hearing splashes of rain. It is the first time that I'm caught in a shower. You've been deep in thought these days. In your friends' parties, I have spotted you staring into the air surrounded by people. You replied with a smile, but it disappeared soon. You excused yourself, went out on the balconies. I used to gaze at your bag. The bag excludes you from the world. Or does it protect you from the rest, even from me? It is so strange that I sense your loneliness just by looking at your back. I don't know why, but I could feel it. It was when I saw you walk up the subway station that I started to notice your back. I called you your name across the street, but you didn't hear me. You were not looking at your phone. You weren't listening to music either, which was odd. You just walked down the street, and I followed you. As I was behind you, I couldn't tell where your eyes rested on, but I was sure nothing drew your attention because your head didn't move at all. It seemed your eyes just told you when to stop and where to go. I would have approached you and tapped your shoulder, but I didn't. I wonder if you were like this when you were alone. I mean, it was another you or a real you. The thought of it awoke my fear, which is the deepest but rarely surfaces. You crossed the street. I let you recede into the crowd. The rain has stopped. Were you depressed? Or was it just rain with no meaning attached? The landscape comes into sight, which was unseen due to the curtain of downpour. Icy coniferous trees with up every end of needles hung with beads of water. When I looked down at the ground, I spotted a few white circles floating above the green bed of leaves. The petals of flowers are over and tiny. Straight lines and circles, these are the feature of this area, I conclude, standing under the arch. On the way back to the entrance of your forest, I realized I picked the wrong way. After several attempts, I managed to find the way leading to it. As I can see the entrance in the distance, I'm relieved. I found footprints left on the muddy ground, but I keep walking, thinking I should rinse the mud from my sneakers when I get back home. A grasshopper, or its locust, jumps onto my left foot and dives into weeds. Around it, I detect some footprints. I hear a dull thud from my forest. They are not mine. I haven't explored this area yet. Whose footprints are they? Who is she? Who is he? Or who are they? Am I not alone in this forest? Why on earth did I think that I was the only one that was invited to your forest? I'm taken aback how immensely huge your forest is. I once thought I arrived at the border, but I haven't reached it yet. Sometimes I get lost, not knowing to where to go. The other day I lost my ways in this labyrinth, which was suffocating. Wait, was it? Who is it? I just saw a figure in beige. My eyes searched for it. It was a woman, I'm certain. The figure just appeared and disappeared in a trice. I saw the long hair. Where is she? I walked through thick bushes which scratched my bare legs. Where the hell is she? The color of her clothes makes it hard for me to find her. She appeared again. She's barely visible through the dense foliage. I hate these leafy trees blocking my view. I abandon my attempt to follow her track. Instead, I decide to call and confront her. I call her, and my voice echoes through the forest. No response. I try again. No answer. I climb up a rock and stand the edge of it. Found her. Finally, I can see her. She's walking toward the entrance of the forest. She seems versed in yours. It seems that she knows where she's going. I run toward the entrance at full speed, calling her, who never looks back. What the hell is wrong with her? Is she deaf? The distance between her and me is getting narrowed. I can see she wears a beige sleeveless dress and brown sandals. What is wrong with her? Who in the world wears that expensive outfit in the forest? Now I'm close enough to see her profile. The round forehead, the brows with a hint of intellect, and the elegant nose. She makes her exit. I just watch her. I met dozens of women like her. At your family's events, at your high school reunion, at your college friend's party, at a fancy restaurant where I had never dined before you brought me. It's her, your ex. I knew it. She chose the fundamental over you. She's engaged to him, and they're getting married in one of his family's beach houses 5 months later. You are devastated. You came to the bar where I work on weekends to ease your sadness and loss. But you are not the kind of person who would cause self-destructive behaviors. Just 1 or 2 drinks. That's enough, you said. You spent most of the time conversing with me. You said you went jumping every morning to distract yourself. Because you hoped to bump into her someday and want her to find you living a happy life. You said it wasn't for revenge. It was the only way you cared for someone you loved, wanting the best for her. The more time I spent with you, the thirstier I was for you, as I am right now. I take left and right turns, randomly choosing trails, and find myself standing a few yards from the well. Don't even come close to the well. The ground is slippery because it is wet. I'm worried that you might get hurt. I recall what you said to me. Still away from it, I stare at it. The well looks pretty different from the others that I have seen. It is just a hole in the ground. I'm not sure if we can call it a well. There is no roof which is supposed to protect it from falling rain. It isn't encircled by a brick wall or anything. You say you're afraid that I might fall into it. Then why did you not build a wall? The ground doesn't look wet with water. I can't even see that from a distance. Why do you say it is wet? Are you telling a lie to me? Or the ground used to be wet, and you don't know that the ground has already dried because you haven't come here for a while? Given the overgrown grass and fruits fallen on the ground and toast, do you not tend this area? I can't stand here because it is too hot. It is summer in the forest. Lately, I haven't got up at night. I have turned into a light sleeper. Don't be stressed out. I love you just the way you are. Even if you fail, I will still love you. I have been preparing for an advancement in my life. A month ago, when we took a walk after dinner, I ventured my plan. You looked a bit surprised. After taking time, asked me why. You are adept at restraining your feelings, which was partly why I fell in love with you. It made me think that there was no barrier for me to cross to enter your world. Or maybe I deceived myself that I didn't see any. At least I knew that you wouldn't break my heart with a cold no. When I asked you out at the bar, girls sitting around you look at you and me. I could read how dare you on their faces. That night you looked a bit surprised, but after taking time said yes. I rambled on about the plan that I had come up with and memorized. I talked about some dreams unspoken but cherished for a long time, and the future aspired, and you listened to me attentively. When I finished my declamation, silence fell between us. The longer it became, the more impatient I grew. At last, you opened your mouth. You told me that you would support me, emotionally and financially. If you need, you added. If it was for yourself and for your life, you added. You said it was not a good idea to apply for a graduate school if it was for the other reason. You didn't articulate it, but I knew that what you're referring to, and I was aware that you knew I already. knew it. It was humiliating. I could feel my face turning red. And I was afraid that you might discover it, but you kept walking without a word, looking straight. I realized you had expected it too. I barely graduated from a university whose name easily slips out of people's mind. They often ask me the name again, feeling sorry for it. Studying has never been my thing, and I regretted going to the university whenever I paid off my student loans because I ended up working at a bar. Sometimes you and your friends eagerly discuss something I fail to understand. Whenever it happens, I observe their partners, who stay silent, to check if they're like me. They seem to be well acquainted with the subjects of the discussion. They just choose not to be engaged in the conversation. I'm not given that choice in the first place. You wouldn't imagine how nervous I am whenever I am introduced to your relatives, friends, and colleagues that I have never met before. In general, they are well-mannered, the bright and welcoming smiles, but their eyes prove it to me. They ask me what I do, and when I answer them, the awkward fake smile spread over their faces. To be honest, I can't be sure if I could get into a grad school and graduate from it, but at least I can introduce myself to you people as a graduate student who is in the process of achieving bright dreams. This evening, you gave me a box of chocolate that you had bought on the way back home. You have been supporting me. I quit a job and have been spending most of my time being seated in front of the desk. You're aware of the challenges I encountered and try to encourage me. But what you don't know is that I am just sitting here, not studying. You let me use your desk. When it's occupied by me, you sit in front of the kitchen table instead. One day, you asked me if there was anything I needed. I need my desk, I said. You smiled at me. No desk has been delivered so far. I read and reread a few lines indecipherable, then I give up. In spite of myself, my eyes are drawn to the desk, then your books on the shelves. Then I see myself sitting in the middle of your library, outside of myself. How pathetic. I let myself helpless. My laughter tastes bitter. She has been gnawing at us and our relationship. It is not studying that wakes me up in the middle of night, it's her. Of course I know I have been getting paranoid about her, but I can't help thinking of her. I have to find ways to get her out of my head, out of your head, and your forest. When I brought her up, you seemed not to care about her anymore, or you just pretended you had already got over her. Your face exhibited no change. Sometimes I detest your kindness. It's as if I look into murky water. I can neither find what I'm looking for, nor consider getting into the water to find it, or fear of drowning, as I don't know how deep it is, and I can't swim at all. You closed the shutter again, which I read as a disregard. I asked you about her again, pretending I didn't read your reluctance to enter conflict. You didn't take your eyes off the book you were reading, which made me feel like a child, pestering me for the impossible. You give me the unobtainable, but withhold the obtainable. What makes me helpless and hopeless? Probably it's because I sense that you have the game in your hands. You know it too. You are aware, I know you know it. When I moved in your place, I had hope. The hope that I would hold the key of our relationship, which was funny. Do you know what is more ridiculous? I expected you to hand the key over to me. I never took the possibility into consideration, the possibility for me to make it on my own. How silly I was. In silence, I persistently waited for you to surrender, which was your strategy. I didn't move at all, and you were reading the book. At last, you were done with it. I saw my victory just around the corner. Then you picked up another book and started to read it, still not looking at me. That was a fatal blow to me. I tried to contain my anger, but I couldn't. My body began to shake by indignation. I was standing under the picture of us, smiling, sobbing. Only then you looked at me. Do you still love her? I cried out. Upon hearing myself, I wanted to take my words back, but that was too late. I should have approached the issue in a clever way. Why do you put her between us? After taking time, you asked. You must have chosen words. I asked you if you still loved her, just say yes or no. I'm not answering to these stupid questions. It's not because I'm still in love with her. It's about because you're about to cross the line. Crossing the line, so you're admitting there is the line between us. Let's not be off the point. What are you hiding from me? I gave you everything. I am yours. Have you ever been mine? Why can't you be mine? I am not. What do you mean, I asked. I'm not hiding anything from you, and I am not yours. Sorry, honey. You're saying you're hers. I knew it. You opened your mouth, but kept from defending yourself, as if it was impossible for me to understand you. Have you met her since you don't you? You didn't say anything. Will I get back together with her? You said nothing. I know you've been thinking about her. You sighed. I saw her in your forest. Don't even try to lie to me. What did you say? You asked coldly. I said I had seen her in your forest. She looked stunning. Just because I invited you to my forest doesn't mean you are allowed to do and say anything you want. I could sense your anger. It made you look like a stranger to me, which frightened me, because it meant you were escaping from me. I wanted to stake a claim on you and your forest. I did it to understand you. You are a guest, you said. Lovers should make every effort to understand each other. It would make our love deepen. Am I wrong? Understanding one is an illusion. It's impossible. I know you made the map of my forest, which I have acquiesced in, because I know you're anxious about our relationship. I want you not to forget that you are a guest. Don't go beyond the area you're admitted into. The area where you saw her is hers. I hope you are not misinterpreting it as my love for her. I didn't love her anymore. The person I love is you. I wanted to refute your argument, but I knew there was no way that I could win over you. For some reason, that you love me discouraged me from arguing over her and your forest. You asked me if I had gone to the well. I said no. You warned me to keep away from it. Again.
I'm Billy. I'm going to introduce Raju. Raju Kalam, known to his fans and followers as Lovely Raju, he self-published a few books on Amazon and holds a poetry Instagram of about 16,000 followers, where he publishes excerpts of his writing. His poetic work hardly falls short of this celebrity. Raju is a poet dedicated to the practice of distributing hope. Often focused around rural experience and natural disaster, Raju's work features surreal, giddy, and emotional inversions in which the natural world is personified and takes on unusual agency. The glaring sun is rendered at times a friend or foe, trying to burn. The white cloud desires to act like a canopy. Flowers bother with their brightness and threaten the privacy of a human speaker, while the owl suffers a lost child in the aftermath of a storm. Both deeply sensitive and at times playfully abrupt, Raju's poetry is never shy to address the depth and range of experience. In his deft way of doling out juxtaposition and surprise, always redefining the linguistic boundaries between humanity and nature, one can see how inseparable reality and imagination are for Raju. As readers of his work, we don't just witness, we are tossed in the laughter and the laws of ecology. Truly, reading Raju's work invites a new kind of sensitivity and respect for the earth. Lovely Raju holds a bachelor in applied chemistry and chemical engineering. I feel there is a distinct reflection of the aforementioned emotional landscape in the seemingly opposed and rational laws of quantum physics. Yet in this contradiction, there is harmony. These two worlds infuse his work with a gorgeous, resonant, collaborative logic. In his own words, there is a secure place in my heart where theoretical physics sleeps. But above all, it should be mentioned that his work is a protest. It is his method of practicing peace and nonviolent action in a world of environmental injustice. Over the course of our time at Notre Dame, I've followed Raju's world as it has turned to address climate change, never faltering in his quest for inspiring hope through poetry. Raju's work is not a testament to tragedy, but an entreaty for awareness and action, joining together the earth and its residents as mutual victims, and asking for a new collaborative approach. Perhaps this urgency and strength of hope comes from a place in his own history. When I asked Raju about the story behind his name, he told me this: I was born in a rural area of Bangladesh where the education rate was so miserable. Most of the children would drop out at the age of 10 or 12. I could be one of them. But it was my mother who didn't want me to be like the others. Today I'm here because of my mother. I choose to carry my mother's name with me. Lovely is my mother's name. It is a short story. It's been my pleasure to get to know you. So welcome, my mother.
Thank you, Joy, for the excellent intro. I would love to read a few poems about climate change first. Unmeltable. The heart ice melts now, as the people's hearts have been rigid like the meteor rock. You sing a sad song, missing lyric. I write for the trees and drown soil, and for the drought land. And out there needs a rooted, stable home. I paint the missing words. Maybe the days, the rotations of the earth mourn like the cloud in a mood of your negligence. The ice melts tears. The tears would start a sing. Climate on. In a deep sleep now, not available to listen to the folklore and fact places. I am contemplating how to tame the crisis like storm, drought, etc. until the earth becomes the great ocean. Your timid souls should be dead now, while they live in crisis. Make them your friend or stop living now. A man is still crying there, lying on the sand. His son is buried in water. A monster wave came in and took everything, the home, clothes. I want to give him the formula how to make intimacy with the devil that now lives in the salt water before the earth becomes the great oceans and eats up all our flesh. An apparently big-sized star still giving birth to life. My rooftop, the sprig in the head of the tree, this meadow. Horse torturing the own. Sheep after sheep in a queue for the game of grasshoppers. And grasshoppers swallow the content packets of it. The sky, home of constellations, has gone out of colors. Even though thousands of nebulae exploded a second ago. The dark space of life is now struck by the meteor. Aliens in the air eat piece of body, turn ferocious, plan to dip souls in the sailing water. By aliens, I mean greenhouse gas. Climate change. The oceans now want more land, more homes, more trees, more cows and sheep, more people. The oceans want to eat rivers. The spring and summer, the hunger of children, the cries of parents, the beauty of roses, the chirps of cuckoo and doves. The oceans now furiously famished, climate report. Something is absent here. Living in the sky, someone I do not know the name of the person stole a beautiful season from my green land. The damp passage. The ozone layer now torn brutally, and the cancer grows in my neighbor's body. Climate crisis. A giant human shadow on Earth engulfs the ocean, and cloud remains arid now. heavy-hearted angel there praying for light. Mother sitting in the sun. In the kitchen, she cooks something. She stands still. Tap is on, basin is clogged. Water soon floods our pond. Stardust on my face. My son, playing in the backward, fears the shadow. I say, "It's so granny, look." Mother comes down now, sits in the air right beside my boy. In the kitchen, she moves and cries, "No sound." I see her chop a big onion, and no one is there. Outside, my mother and son. Coffin. A coffin. We were only two. The main door was closed. Indoor that goes to the other room stood alone. No path before us. Our wall we saw everything through. The earth was shaking now from inside. Maybe soon wave would explode. The disaster, the homeless people wandering under the sky, and the evils in the palace, inciting the tornadoes in the ocean. The earth looked dull. The climate was so indomitable. Someone said, "Stay, you're safe there." A coffin. We were only two. The main door was closed. I'll read some poems from Raju Kalam in my own dream. These pieces are directly from my dreams, so they are narratives and they need more attention to in my own dream. There was a bench, the three benches together. At one side I sat and did nothing. I should have talked to the almost naked tree sitting next to me. Okay, I can talk to you. A man, unknown, found I at another side of the bench, said, "Hi, Mr. Ford, how are you?" Just my name, but I said, "I'm good, you?" He is not there anymore. In the class, I heard professor say, "Hey Ford, what do you think about the expansion of the universe and its anomalies about gravity theory?" Well prepared to expound. What I said I could hear but not remember. Soon the character went invisible when the sunlight hit our balcony where the robins sprout in the morning for breakfast. 2. I knew that beforehand. What you wrote on whiteboard, your next theory is now in my head. I stole it from yours. Remember, you stole my name? I am looking for that man to steal from his brain only 3 alphabets, F, O, and G. And I visited my mother's brother. He was talking nonsense. My mother seemed hard. Get first. 3. This is the last one from items. You are selling your son. Someone said to my father. He looked worried about it. A problem with electric connection. My room was out of light. 2 things on his head. Worry on how to fix the electric problem. I was anxious. My father was dealing with both the cables and anxiety. It's okay. I will be yours, wherever I am. I sat my mother cooking something with bottom dead leaves. I walked through light shaded woods. Leaves rustled, hugged my toes. Then I ran. Beside me rolled roses and beautiful unknown fauna. I ran to see the next pieces scene. I ran and jumped into a tree that looked tired, calling my name. Not Mr. Fogg this time. Then bow to bow, I leaped like an unruly monkey that just garnered this escape. She was fatigued and looked bothered with my monkey-like legs. She was not my mother. She was my girlfriend. Perhaps. Yelled enough. enough, take me home. I didn't listen to her. I was sure she was going to break up with me. Do not remember what happened next. It did not seem like an airport. We were there to fly. A man I saw carry a heavy bag and 4 children and his wife or 2 carrying a few things on their shoulders. They are moving to another state, I guessed. I was sitting and watching my belongings. I was traveling back to my home, perhaps. A crow like the eagle, drowsing in the sky, hardly flapping the wings. An aeroplane just passed by, yet she's drowsing, no fear in the flesh. Hey, look at that, I said someone that was my neighbor from my country. He was biking, did not reply to me. A child found it funny and laughed. His parents talked over the phone. They looked differently suspicious. I was eating the eggplant. The children were looking at me. I gave them food, talked for minutes. I do not know what the topic was. Suddenly I found I lost my wallet and phone. I doubted them and said, please give them back. If you need money, I'll give. Two of them agreed, 2 did not. Rushed their father. I heard him say over the phone, kill them. We are not beggars, not going to beg dollars. I shouted, run. The man aimed the gun and shot. I found the bullet in my chest. They were safe. I relieved and knew they were not parents, they were heads of mafias. Later I died. FBI report. The man who died by shooting was not a member of mafia. He was sending some dollars to his parents through MLB or MLCB. That's the last one. Dream. So now I'll read some poems from some poems I have recently written. Stationary planet. That was a time when no season touched the soil of the earth. No stars were unable to shine my terrace. Epitomes of plants. When the blind moon peeped in the sky in the shape of black hole, as if the universe had no light. When I became the sun without the chain reaction in the core, stood there like a man who no longer fights for him. The time when the river did not forget to flow even though there was no water inside. There was no season in a time that is still concealed in the nuclei of cells. His story is actually his hiking story. A night without roof. A moon in the darkness. I have been looking for the fireflies in the sky. I dreamed them with the dead stars to shine my mother's face. When I was home, one day I saw a rabbit eat a firefly that was a flying lamprey. I scolded him and pulled the firefly out of his mouth. Mother and I carefully left it in the bush. Then bush turned the lighthouse. Nebulae were born in the middle, then the Milky Way. Another night without day, with a time full of penis. Another moon in the trap of space-time, with stardust all over her rocky body. I have been looking for sun in the bleak sky. When I was home one day again, I saw someone pour water in the sun. Was it a black hole? Mother and I drove him away in the edge of the universe, saved it in the last moment. I have been looking for them. I have been looking for them for years to brighten my mother's face. Last one. Last one. What a life. This is from previous semester. What a life. Woods. And other woods. Inside the clouds. Inside out. Through the mirror, maybe I don't know who they are. Not really inside, as leaves still green. Woods. I have been dreaming my little home there. A straw roof and that drips rain. The walls of clay or of coconut leaves entwined by tender stem of banana fig and a bed of soil. Flight is my old friend, the birds and trees singing and swaying still, no drowsiness. And someday the sky would come to my balcony and take me to the colony of the chirping fledglings. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'll be introducing Angie. Angie showed up this year and I was immediately appreciative of her wry sense of humor, which is to say I appreciated that she enjoys my jokes, or she pretends to. And her enthusiasm for reading the work of others, her analysis and her instincts, and an outlook that is both capacious and empathetic. As I learned more about her, things started to fall into place. Angie is so interesting, her outlook so expansive, because she's had this sort of life experiences and arc that I'd expect to encounter with a character in a novel. She grew up in a little farmhouse in Missouri with lots of siblings, like a lot, I think, and mice. She graduated from a tiny liberal arts college run by Benedictine monks, which overlooked the Missouri River from a bluff from on high. She studied English and theater with a focus in playwriting and dramaturgy, and was an assistant director on several Shakespeare productions with an incarcerated cast in Lansing, Kansas. She then taught middle school English for 5 years, which is all to say she's done a lot of good already in the world, which is perhaps the most important thing. But tonight, the writing's the thing. While she was a teacher, she wrote during summers, and some of those short stories are published in Dappled Things, where she was the J.F. Powers Prize winner in 2019, and in About Place and Storm Cellar. And then it seems there was somewhat of a turning point. Much to many people in her life's surprise, she was very nearly a nun. She spent several months in a convent outside of Boston serving as a shepherdess, took a vow of silence, like the whole deal, the real deal. All that silence, the time and space for contemplation, seems to have delivered her from the convent to us, for which we can only be grateful. Angie would describe her writing, at least the writing she's doing now, as mystical realism. It's writing that is always open to the possibility of the supernatural, the spiritual, but is grounded in nature, in our material lived realities. She likes to write about nature being destroyed, people being hurt, and occasionally all of this being healed and redeemed. This is certainly evident in the work I've read from Workshop, the opening chapters of her thesis, her first novel, and from which she'll be reading tonight, I think, and which weaves the long arc of nature over geological time with the story of a religious family of farmers in Missouri. And their own arc over decades. It's like a wonderful ensemble piece, of people, of animals, of nature, containing some truly memorable writing and scenes. There was a short passage that I was going to read to wrap this up, but I checked and happily found out that she will be reading it. So I cede the floor to Angie, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, so just to understand this excerpt, so I'm going to just hop into it. My narrator is Joel. He's 12 or 13. He's the youngest in a family of 5 brothers and 1 sister who's in boarding school. And I'm giving a few scenes that don't run together in the manuscript, so I'm going to provide like brief connecting tissue between scenes that might not make sense. So, a lone willow stood along the bank of the creek. Gallant cottonwoods held the embankment in place and, as if they knew they were doing it, did not stretch their upper branches to their full length in this part of the wood. They allowed the willow to take up most of the canopy, as if they understood beauty, how to make it, how to live on it. The drapery, the pussy willow, the yeller flowers, the sugary smells and buzzing bees, gentle breeze sending the draping leaves in a sweet, languid waves flowing. It was Zeke's favorite spot on the farm, and so it was mine too. My big brother Zeke let me tag along on account of my budding interest in all his taxonomy and little sketches and in him in general. Zeke sat back against the tree and pulled out a big old tome titled The Idiot, which I thought was hilarious, but couldn't think of the right joke to make. So I started looking around, poking stuff. Sunspots spilled in from the canopy here and there, little pools of dust sparkled. Gnats buzzed but didn't bother. The willow trunk gnarled outer bark that Ma might mince into tea when we'd get stuck with honey locust thorns, host of blue lichens and strange toadstools, and especially showy flare of mushrooms sprouting from a knob. And there, right under the first branch fork, straight lines and patterns that don't really occur in nature, not that I knew of, so I was looking at the tree, at the carving, a skull, and then past it at something, at someone. Zeke. 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 Zeke, 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 Zeke. Why? A dirty kid crossed the creek ford on stepping stones. Must have been a few years older than me, maybe 15 or 16. He had a cloak bunched up to avoid the water, all denim with frayed patches, and his hairy ankles revealed above his beat-up PF flyers. He wore some kind of braided, beaded rope around his waist that would be cinched, but there was nothing to hold on to. He leaned heavily onto a curved stick. He approached us, and we stood our ground. I spat. What's with the dress? It's a habit, the kid said. It's a bad one. Joel, shut up, he said. The mystery kid was covered in acne, a bit greasy. It was, I suppose, part of a gross charm about him. Messy, disheveled, unaware of which parts of his layers were wrinkled, tucked, folded, unaware of the hole in his cloak, unaware of the cut running from the thumb to his wrist, scabbing black and haphazard, fingernails colored dark with dirt and bruises, shoelaces on his muddy boots done up so carelessly it was impressive. Hair just a damn mess, too long, vacant, aloof eyes, scar over one. It was opaque, cloudy white with over a deep brown iris, and he had this ready grin. He had some type of effect on Zeke. Zeke, narrow-eyed and calculating as I'd ever seen him. Zeke said, "Who are you?" "Who are you?" the kid said. Zeke stiffened. "You're on our property, you'll answer to us." And I was kind of proud because he was being such a badass. He could sound like our big brothers when he wanted to. But the kid straightened up too, fists clenched, so I said, "We're some of them old backwood cannibals you heard about on C-SPAN." "Joel, shut up," Zeke said. The kid wheezed. "You got a church in this town?" Zeke watched him. "Yeah." "What kind?" I said, "Oh, we got the Catholic one that Paul makes us go to, where we got to kneel on wood a lot, lots of statues. And the Baptist one, kind of boring. Then there's the evangelical one, and that's way more fun, lots of hellfire. I have some friends go there." And then hidden way out there off the Katy Trail, down the Missouri River, there's some altars and some caves in the bluff that no one's supposed to know about, but everyone kind of does, and I think people have sex or sacrifices or something down there. "Joel, can you shut up?" Zeke said. I caught the kid looking up at the tree, at the carving where I was looking, before he crawled out of the woods. Then he looked at both of us, then just at Zeke, and Zeke looked at him. And then the kid went cross-eyed and fell over. Zeke knelt next to him. "Hey, you okay?" He nudged his shoulders and tapped his cheek and felt his face. "Help me," he said to me, and his voice registered serious, so I knew to mind him now. Okay, so time passes. This kid is revealed to be the character Billy, and he's basically accepted into the family unit because Paul likes him because he's a hard worker, he likes church, he doesn't eat much. So time passes, he's kind of part of the family unit at this point. Sometimes after dinner, Billy would join me and Zeke, and we'd walk out to the field in the evening when the sun weren't so hot, and Whip and Rod would follow us, confused if they was working or playing, ready for a commanding whistle, but mostly happy to be coming along to see the cows. And Billy and Zeke would walk on down the gravel road talking, and they might go on down and climb the hay bales, and I'd sit and watch what I had come to think of as my cows. You know, I could see how them Israelites got to worship in bulls. That one-ton body is something. Unleashes in you a hunger and fear all at once, rump twitching, hook bone rotating as the dew claw stomps a warning, scroth and sheath swaying under him and his knee refracting and pulling and pastured hooves across the dirt, sending up dust, flexing the very spot on his packed chest where there's brisket pulsing. The potential energy in this beast, his restraint from destroying you where you stand, looms above him like an animus. And I don't blame the pagans for none of their election of him as a god. But the Israelites in their call to monotheism, well, I see how they had lots of painful realignment and thinning in the desert for their sin, but I also see how they kept going back to the bowl again and again. Hey, fucker. I looked up and my baby bull calf was looking right at me. Then Jeremy plopped down next to me and stretched back. He was tall these days, taller than Mose, but not Paul, and skinny and stretched out looking. He was eating a bowl of beans. Oh, I said, want to make some money? Maybe, I said. You gotta swear not to tell Pa or you'll be in deep shit, he said. My fear of Pa overpowered my desire for money. Jeremy had something wrong in his brain that he weren't more scared. Count me out, I said. Where's Zeke? Zeke ain't gonna do it. Zeke was the good one. What about Billy? I don't know. He ain't ever worth a shit, Jeremy said. He rested his forearms on his knees now like a shaggy praying mantis. He was wearing some old leather jacket that smelled god-awful, never changing out of his sheep clothes, a skull patch on the shoulder. Where are you going? I asked. Nowhere, he said. He spat on my shoe and got up and left. He was a real jackass, and had been since he turned 17 the previous winter. He trotted down the road and slowed when 4 figures emerged, Zeke and Billy with Whip and Rod at their heels. They stopped when they saw Jeremy. They were out of earshot and it was getting dark, but I could make out their outlines. They talked a bit, and I could tell Jeremy was selling them on something, animated. He handed Zeke his bowl of beans. Zeke took a reticent bite. Jeremy was gesturing over to the cow fields on the other side of the woods. Zeke was shaking his head, itching his neck, backing away. And then something strange. Billy reached out and touched Zeke's face, right on the face, full-handed. And Zeke pulled away and grabbed his arm, but calmed when they met eyes, face to face. I went up the gravel road. The dogs abandoned me at the house to burrow under the porch and whimper, but no storm was coming. All right, and then skipping ahead, something happened in the cow field and the night before, and when Joel wakes up in the morning, he's not sure what. But then it's revealed over breakfast that his bull calf is dead and Billy has gone missing. Ma emerged from her room a Medusa. No hair ties in her hair, looking fit to wring a neck. Y'all best get outside, she said, which triggered a slow forward trajectory from Dave and Jeremy like stop motion animation, the jackasses. Too late. Ma was trying to spare us, but the back door slammed and in came Pa, linoleum crying under the weight of his boots. It was like he lifted a wet rock. We all scattered like the cockroaches we were, except he caught Jeremy by the collar and held him close. I listened from the doorway. You know anything about my ammonia being siphoned from the tanks? Jeremy squeaked, no sir. Valves are reading lower than yesterday. I don't know. Pa studied Jeremy's purpled face. What happened to you? I tried to stop the calf. Pa said, you were just there, huh? When you got spooked? I was on the gravel road, I heard it hollering, and I had to shoot him in the head this morning. Leg so goddamn busted up on the cattle guard, Pa said. Should have been your leg. And I can't say I disagreed with Pa exactly, but I felt a twinge for my brother. We all stayed out of Pa's way the next couple of weeks, and Jeremy was particularly mindful. Zeke and I were hiding out under the willow. Later after chores, we were both wondering about Jeremy. Zeke told me he planned to catch him in the act one of these nights. Act of what? I wondered. But this was one of those times where my brother's business felt so jagged steep that I'd surely fall if I looked up at it, so I focused on the things I understood. Think Billy will come back? Zeke said, I don't know. Do you want him to come back? I asked. Zeke closed his eyes. I pushed the side of my foot against his. The mud on our soles mingled. During the night, He comes into the clearing under the canopy, expectant. Under the tree he thinks of as his. The tree thinks the same about him. The cow field is on the other side where his eldest brother, with the Levitical calling, left his inheritance, a herd of bovine. He says his brother's name into the darkness, no answer. And then he is rested to the ground. Wind knocked from him, ruah, he thinks, before he's contracting his arms and legs to protect his middle from blows of foot, then fist, then foot again. He's gasping, he catches a foot, pulls the opponent down, rolls over onto him, strives atop him. The opponent shoves him to his back, breathless again, and they expire the night away like this, facing each other, face pressed into the ground. The face of the wet dirt, the sun hits at breaking, the face of the horizon, the face of the deep just beyond, face to face. It's not his brother. They are kneeling under the willow, out of breath. It's his opponent. He smells of ammonia. What's your name? The opponent says, you know my name. You know what I mean? No. He holds on to his opponent. Give me, he's not sure what. His opponent hands him a rubber band fold of cash and says, don't tell your brother I was here. Then the opponent brings a steel gas siphon down hard upon his hip socket, so strong electricity jolts up his nerve to his neural pathways and back down again, and his whole leg crumples, and he's alone again. So Billy, I think, stopped coming back around the time Zeke got some bad sciatica. Early in the track season, he couldn't run. He couldn't do much of anything except eat. Zeke got real hungry. He was string beaned, that's what Mom said, spindly arms and legs shooting out from a thin wave torso. This early summertime, I remember, he was eating anything. I swear he was swallowing chicken bones, licking them clean, pulling every last piece of skin or ligament off the bone with his teeth, and they'd clamp together, and he'd pull the whole thing, and it was all a bit canine, but I found it interesting. He'd pick potatoes from Ma's little patch, and you bet she noticed. When I was really young, we used to have a big old potato patch. We had all sorts of patches of all sorts of crops before Pa zeroed in on corn and then soybeans. And Zeke would eat these potatoes raw, I swear. I saw him bite into a yellowish brownish potato like an apple. He'd steal corn right out the field. Stopped the gator in the cornfield once when we was on our way to the barn with the pitchfork up the shit, and he hopped out and pulled the corn stalk down to himself, plucked out the corn cob, and ate it as he drove. And I told him, that's feed corn, that's not eating corn. He said, same difference, and I was impressed with his stomach. When I brought it up to her, Ma said, he's growing is all. He's already tall as Davy, horizontally, she said. I could tell she was looking around for something for me to do. Maybe it's a tapeworm, I said. She said, set a table. I set 7 places, bigger boys, me and Zeke, Ma and Hanny. Billy hadn't come back. Pa was out in the fields with the sheriff, looking at the nurse tank damage. There were some unsavory rumors about what it was being used for, and Pa wasn't going to let it lie. Zeke had already eaten a forkful of potatoes before Ma asked him to do the reading in Pa's stead. Zeke retrieved the gold-leafed, leather-bound Bible from the stand in the corner of the room, shaky-handed, his arm bones jutting and pressing against his skin at the joints. He sat down at his place, pushed his plate from the way, held his aching stomach, and flipped open to the page saved with the ribbon. He read. He said to me, O mortal, stand on your feet, and I will speak with you. And when he spoke to me, a spirit entered into me and set me on my feet, and I heard him speaking to me. And you, O mortal, do not be afraid of them, do not be afraid of their words, though briars and thorns surround you, and you live among scorpions. Do not be afraid of their words, do not be dismayed at their looks. You shall speak my words to them, whether they hear or refuse to hear, for they are a rebellious house. And when he finished, all fell silent. And then his head fell onto the open page, his eyes closed. Everyone else still had their heads bowed, so I looked down too, but I watched Zeke with my one eye. His tongue slid out of his open mouth, found the page he pressed his face against. Saliva pooled, and then all at once Zeke pulled the page into his mouth and ripped it with his teeth and was munching it, balling it up with his molars, and he swallowed. He opened his eyes to see us all staring at him now. He lifted his head heavily and gazed back. Zeke, you're excused, Ma said. Zeke got up warily and limped out the back. After the screen door slapped shut, Davy said, we call an exorcist? Nope, Ma said, and the Bible stayed open to the slobber-on pages of the major prophet. Zeke had eaten the 2nd chapter of Ezekiel, and I'm telling you, he only got weirder after that. Thank you.